All right, guys, welcome back to another wrestling talk discussion. This is Irrational Wrestling Mark, also known as Irrational Wrestling Viewer. And I'm going to be talking about how we can fix the WWE Women's Division in 2023. Now, the women's division currently is in shambles. There is really not enough engaging storylines. Some of the matches feel not as important. Mainly, the matches haven't been connecting, right? Like the last real good women's match we had was WrestleMania 39 with Rhea Ripley and Charlotte. But on a weekly basis, the women are they're just they're not valued as much. They don't feel valued. And we're just doing matches for the sake of doing matches. No real storyline, no real character development going on. I talked about the NXT women's division, how that division has way better character development, better storylines, and from what see with that women's division, the women have more TV time. Right? They're given TV time. They feel like a normal fixture on the show. And we can say the match quality has increased. I guess so. Right? But it just isn't connecting. And the women's division for the past couple years has not been connecting, hasn't been engaging, hasn't been interesting, hasn't been fun, to say the least. You know, back when they had the women's revolution in 2015, it was promising. It was promising with Charlotte, Sasha, Becky, Bayley, but it soon became just dull and unappealing and uninteresting. Like the NXT women's division from back in the day, like the era of Charlotte, Sasha, Bayley, Asuka, and Ember Moon, and Emma Page. Those were the golden days of the NXT women's division. But as a whole, it was a lot more entertaining. Because if you look at who was the brains behind the operation, not only Triple H, but Dusty Rhodes was a big part, had a big part in the women becoming more important on the shows. He added to their value, and he gave the women more TV time, interesting characters, character development, storylines that were engaging because of Dusty. Well, you look how in recent years how the women's division is booked. It's just not the same, and that can be thanks to lazy writing. A lot of lazy writing and scripted promos. Everybody sounds robotic. Everybody just feels like they're rehearsing lines. Nothing is organic. It doesn't make you It doesn't make you feel like you're watching a conversation being played out on TV, right? This is not how people talk to each other. You've seen better actors, but the women's division as a whole, it's just not cutting it, man. It's just not cutting it. And I'm going to tell you why. Why it's not. I mean, I pretty much told you why it's not cutting it no more. But I can tell you pretty much how we can go about fixing the problem with the women's division. And it's not going to be fixed overnight. It's going to take a lot of time. Better writing, better storylines. Now, I can't trash the match quality, but sometimes you see too much good wrestling and you get to a point where the people that you see wrestling, they have no character. They have no personality. They have no way in connecting with the audience. So when you watch their matches are good. But then it gets to a point where you don't even care if they have a good match or not, because there is no real reason to care about these two wrestlers fighting. Why should you care about a Becky Lynch fighting a Chelsea Green or a Sonya Deville? Why should you care about, Rhea Ripley fighting, I don't know, a Candice LeRae? Why should you care about that match? Well, I'll tell you why you shouldn't care about it. Because they didn't give you a reason to care. First and foremost, Rhea Ripley still doesn't have a challenger. Second of all, Candice LeRae and other women on the Raw roster, they're not used. They're not on TV. So if they're not on TV, they're not being used, they're not wrestling, how can the fans connect? How can the fans care about them? How can you legitimately buy Candice LeRae challenging Rhea Ripley for the Women's World Championship? How? The fans are not going to care. Just like the fans didn't care about, Rhea Ripley facing Natalya. Nobody cared. Natalya got squashed in like a minute. The fans didn't they didn't give you a reason to invest or to care. When you see a championship feud of any, male or female, any gender, your first thing to look for is, why should I care? Why should I care about this title match? Why should I care? Why should I care about challenger going after champion? See, with Cody and Roman, you care about Cody finishing the story. You care about Cody Rhodes as the challenger, chasing the title, pursuing the world championship, eventually beating Roman Reigns. There's already a story attached. There's a reason to care. Cody Rhodes is over. Top babyface. Every time he comes out, he gets a great reaction consistently every week. There's never a dull moment with Cody Rhodes. As much as people don't want to admit it, but Charlotte Flair, you can complain that she is getting yet another title match against Asuka or just anybody, right? But the fact of the matter is, the reason why Charlotte is being thrusted into these title matches, and the reason why she's in the title picture so much, is because why? The fans, the audience, They actually care about Charlotte. They react to her. She doesn't have to have a storyline, which it's not needed for her, but it would definitely spice things up. But because Charlotte's already over, the fans, are going to react to her a lot better. She's already over. So her being put in these title matches every time, it's just a given. You may not care, you may not like the fact that she's in these title matches, but you care enough to watch. You care enough to invest your time into watching her and, to see if she'll win or lose. And you can't deny that, Charlotte Flair, she's a great athlete. Very, very good in the ring. But it doesn't surprise me because look at who her father is. Look at who her father is. It's pretty self-explanatory as why she's so good in the ring. But you care about seeing Asuka and Charlotte. You care about a Bianca Belair turning heel, which is going to be pretty good. But the women's division as a whole is actually suffering. See, one woman or two women might prevail and do well and dominate the division, but the rest, they fall. The rest of them suffer. Let's be honest here. The only women that the WWE really cares about, and I'm going to name off 5 women. You can probably list off maybe 7 or 8 that they care about, right? But judging from what I see on TV and just being a rational viewer, I would say the 5 women that the WWE cares about the most: Charlotte Flair, obvious. Bianca Belair. Asuka, to a certain degree. But there's a reason why Asuka is in the title picture, why she's champion, right? There's a reason why she's given TV time. They care about Asuka. Otherwise, if she wasn't really important, they wouldn't be using Asuka. So Asuka, number 3. Ronda Rousey, yes. And then Rhea Ripley. Oh, then I guess you can probably throw in Becky Lynch. So that's 6. That's 6. So that's probably about, that's 6 women that they care more about. Becky Lynch, Rhea Ripley, Ronda Rousey, Asuka, Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair. That's the only 6 women they care about. But when it comes to Raw and SmackDown, the women's divisions on Raw and SmackDown are too broad. They're too broad. They're too large. First off, you have too many women on the roster of each brand. I think they need to cut down the women's roster in half, okay, for each brand. On the Raw roster for the women, you should have at least 8 women. And for SmackDown, at least 6 or 8, because, based off a 2-hour show, you can probably squeeze in enough time for 6 women on SmackDown every week. And the 6 women on SmackDown that for sure are going to be given TV time. They should only use the women and give them TV time, give them TV time and give them engaging storylines, right? Feature those women, right? Feature the 8 women that for sure they are going to be a regular fixture on Raw every week. Same thing with SmackDown. It makes no sense to have 18, 19, 20 women on the Raw roster and you only care about 3 or 4. Makes no sense. You only care about 3 or 4 women. The rest are just not even on TV. No one cares about them. When they do go on TV, no one cares. It's blase, blase. Boring stuff. So why not just have 8 women on Raw that for sure you're going to give TV time to, that you're going to be given the best writing to, the best storylines, and feature them in engaging matches, quality matches every week. And that will give the fans a reason to care. And it's also less women to invest your time into. Because guess what? You have 18, 19, 20 women on your roster. You're not going to use 10 of those women. You're not. You're barely only going to be able to feature at least 3 or 4 at a time. Right? But they have a large women's roster, but they're not doing anything to get over a Candice LeRae. They're not doing anything to get over an Indy Hartwell. Since Indy Hartwell has been drafted from NXT to Raw, she hasn't even made a debut yet. She hasn't even debuted. A Piper Niven, no one really cares about her. Nikki Cross, irrelevant. A Tegan Knox, irrelevant. Emma, irrelevant. Xia Li, irrelevant. Sonya Deville, Chelsea Green, they get TV time, but at the end of the day, the fans don't care about them. They don't care. They care about Rhea Ripley. They care about Becky Lynch, Trish Stratus, of course, and Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, but mainly Ronda Rousey. I can guarantee you, if Ronda Rousey wasn't on, if she wasn't on the roster, I guarantee you Shayna Baszler would barely get any TV time. I guarantee you. If it wasn't for Ronda Rousey, Shayna Baszler wouldn't get any TV time at all. So for SmackDown, you should have at least 6 or 8 women that you're going to give the most TV time to and only use those women. You can bring in jobbers to have them job to those 8 women that you want to kind of put over and make them a regular fixture on TV every week. Having 8 women, right, 6 or 8 on your weekly shows from each brand, it actually makes booking them a lot easier. And also, you only have 8 women to write stuff for, right? Storylines, matches, whatever, character. You only have 8 women to write for. That's not a lot. That's not a lot. Compared to having 18 or 20 women to write for, that's a lot. Because a lot of those women are, like, at least 10 or 12 of those women are not going to get any TV time. They're not. They're not going to be featured. So you're just wasting roster spots. And I come to the conclusion that the women's division from back in the day was a lot better. It actually is a lot better than the current women's division that we have today. And yes, I did say that. The women's division from back in the day, which was called the Divas division, was actually much better than what we have now. And why do I say that? I'm specifically talking about the Ruthless Aggression era, right? Where you had Trish, Lita, Jazz, Molly Holly, Victoria, Gail Kim, and Ivory, and Jacqueline. And then you had your eye candy and Stacy Keibler. Right? But I can guarantee you that women's division was so much easier to book and to write for. All you had to do was just pair them in matches, build their character up. A Stacy Keibler didn't have to wrestle. You can just put her in a love angle. make her a manager, make her a valet for a male wrestler, and that's how some of these women were used. Like back in the day, a lot of these women may have not been great wrestlers, but they were used more effectively in whatever role that they were booked to play. And they were always on TV every week, like a Trish, a Lita, a Stacy Keibler, a Molly, a Jazz, Victoria Gale. They were on Raw every week. And that was a much shorter women's division. See, when you have a short women's division, like 6 to 7 or 8 women on the show, it's easier to book them because there's less, women that you have to write for. And they feel more important because there's only 8 women you're focused on every week. Now, I'm not saying that all 8 women are going to be in the show every week, right? You may have 6 women that have storylines that are important, that take up TV time, that are engaging, right? You may have a couple of women that are just laying low and just on the side, and then until it's time to push them into a storyline, then you have something ready for them, right? And they're in engaging programs, and it's at a point where the fans care about them every week. They react to them. The women's division back in the day, why do you think a Trish and Lita got so much TV time? Because the fans always reacted to them. The fans cared. Why do you think Stacy Keibler got so much TV time? Because the fans cared. Not just that, because the writers were giving you a reason to care about these women. Because they were in fun, engaging storylines. That made sense for their character. Stacy Keibler didn't have to wrestle because she was always used effectively as a valet, as eye candy. She got more TV time because she was just good to look at. That's just the way it was. The fans would react to her all the time. Who wouldn't want to look at Stacy Keibler? Like, who wouldn't want Stacy Keibler on their TV screen every week? Who would not want a Tori Wilson to be on their TV screen every week, or a Trish? Like, come on now. Even on SmackDown, like, you had a very short women's division. They had no title, but the women on the roster felt more interesting, easier to book, characters that were easy to write. Because, like I said, with a large, broadened women's division, you're not going to be able to feature over half of those women. You got 20 women on your Raw roster. You're not going to feature at least 13, 14 of those women. You're not. For at least 14 of those women are going to be on the sidelines in catering, being forgotten about. While you have 6 or 7 women that are on TV every week and featured. They have something to do. And there's a reason why the fans care about them. So the way to really fix the women's division today in 2023 is to cut the damn roster in half. Get rid of the women that you're not going to use, that you don't care about. You're not going to book them anything. So why should the fans care about them? If you don't care about them, why should we care about them? Why should we care about a Candice LeRae if you don't care about a Candice LeRae? Why should we care about an Emma or a Tegan Knox if they don't care about them? Fans are not going to care. A Nikki Cross, a Piper Niven, why not just get rid of them, release them, or put them back in NXT. Or here's a concept, just, come up with some engaging storylines for them. Put them, make them a serious title contender to Rhea Ripley. Because right now, Rhea Ripley needs a challenger. Literally, there's no one on the Raw women's division that can believably right now beat Rhea Ripley. There's nobody. They haven't built anybody up except Becky Lynch, but right now she's busy with Trish and Zoe Stark. Raquel Rodriguez is busy losing to Ronda and Shayna. So that's out the question. Natalya got squashed. And the rest of the women on Raw are not even on TV. They're not even on TV. So what's the sense? You know what I'm saying? Shorten your women's roster and only feature 6 to 8 women that you know for sure you are going to give them TV time. They're going to be given engaging storylines, write interesting character development, write stuff for them and give them a character. Develop their character every week so that they can connect with the audience, right? The rest of the women, they can be released because you're not doing nothing with them. See, it actually hurts when you have a large women's roster. They think having 18 or 20 women on the Raw roster and on SmackDown, same thing, is going to somehow fix the women's division by rehiring all these old faces. It didn't help anything. It actually only hurt the women's division and actually only exposed the women's division by having more women on the show. Because you don't know what to do with them, and they're not exactly hitting the mark. They're not exactly hitting a home run in whatever they're doing or whatever program that they're in. See, it's not just the writers, it's not just the creative team, it's also the talent. They have to go out there and hit a home run in whatever they're given. And if they just go out there and wet the bed, guess what? They're not going to be on TV much longer. They're not. I would at least have 6 women on SmackDown that you're going to prioritize every week, that you're going to be given engaging storylines to, programs, and developing their characters, and the women that you're going to be giving the most TV time to, and only focus on those 6 women. You can bring in jobbers to put them over. Same thing with Raw. It's a 3-hour show, so you can probably prioritize 8 women at a time, or just focus on those 8 women for a set period of time until you're ready to push other women to the forefront, right? I think that's the only way that you can effectively book a women's division in 2023, because you can't have everything for everybody. You're not going to be able to fit 20 women on your show every week. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So the best bet is to just cut the women's rosters in half from Raw and SmackDown, focus only on 6 women on SmackDown, and focus only on 8 on Raw until you're ready to, until you're ready to push other women to the forefront, right? But get the most out of the women that you're going to be using every week. And that's why I say the women's division from back in the day was more important, because they had more engaging storylines, better characters. The wrestling was actually more high quality. Yes, it was short, but it had quality. The biggest complaint when it comes to the women's division is that the women are not given enough time to put on good matches or great matches. See, that's not really a problem anymore, because the women have been given enough time to wrestle. Are they not being given 10 minutes to wrestle on TV almost every week? Okay, sure. You may have some women matches are just 4 minutes. That's fine. They don't need to be 10 minutes. Because if you have two green women wrestlers, they're rookies in the ring, why would you give them 10 minutes and 15 minutes to wrestle a match? They're going to be overexposed. So you cut their time short, and you only showcase their strongest assets, their strongest attributes. You only showcase what they can do in the ring for at least 4 to 5 minutes. And you give like the Charlotte Flairs of the world, the Bianca Belairs of the world, the Rhea Ripley's, Becky Lynch, you give them 15, 20 minutes. Right? You give them 15, 20 minutes to work a match. The reality is that some of these women are just not good enough to wrestle 10, 15-minute matches. That's just the truth. That's just the truth. You may not like it, but it is what it is. They're simply not experienced enough to carry a match for that long. So having their match be cut in half, the time the match is necessary. Like, you don't need to have, and you don't have to have a 15-minute match in order for it to be great. Like, a great match can actually happen in 5 minutes if done right. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's been good matches that were only 4 or 5 minutes. Why? Because you had talented workers that just knew how to work a match within the time that they were given. You know? Most of these women matches now should just be 5 minutes or 10, whatever. But give the longer matches to the ones that are more experienced. You know, you give the green women wrestlers less time. It's just the lack of character. It's the lack of storylines, engaging storylines, and just simply not enough time put into, developing the women. You know, you can give them long matches all you want, but if you can't get the fans to be invested and give the fans a reason to care about the women, then it's pointless. You know? So that's pretty much my rant on the state of the women's division in 2023. And, let me know your comments down below. Comment your thoughts and opinions. Do you think they should cut the women's roster in half? Have 8 on Raw and have only 6 on SmackDown so that those 6 women can get more TV time and the focus is only on them? Same thing with Raw. The focus is only on those 8 women and nobody else. And nobody suffers. Nobody is left behind because it's actually an equal level playing field. With what we got now with the women, there's only a couple of women that are just above everybody else. But the majority of the women are left behind. They're left with nothing. While you have at least 3 or 4 or 5 women that pretty much are given opportunities every week. And they're given storylines, longer matches, and all that. But I don't know. I'm just going on the rant, and this is only my opinion only. I think the women's division from back in the day was better booked than how it is today. You can say the match quality went up, sure, from a large margin, from a broad, yeah, I guess so. But from a character standpoint, it's very weak. It's lacking. So with that being said, this is Irrational Wrestling Mark. Like the video for the algorithm. Subscribe today for new content.